lot of people are excited to hear I'm a zookeeper, and they ask what I do, and I say I work with raptors, and they'll say, why raptors? And I say, what's better than a carnivorous bird? I mean, birds are cool to begin with, but a strictly meat-eating bird, like how much closer to dinosaurs can you possibly get?
As far as how long falconry has been around, the earliest documentations that I know of are in the walls of caves in China. They got dated somewhere 500 years BC. And there's carvings in there with people with a hawk on their fist.
After 2 years of apprenticeship, if you have a bird for 6 months, the caveat in the falconry from Fish and Wildlife is that in order to count as a year of falconry, you have to have had a bird for 6 months out of that year. So at any rate, if you've fulfilled that for 2 years, you automatically progress on to becoming a general falconer. As an apprentice falconer, you're limited to those two birds. Kestrels, which is a tiny falcon, and red-tailed hawks, which are ubiquitous but wonderful predators. Once you've passed that 2-year period, you can have any kind of a bird you want. You can have a peregrine falcon, you can have a gerfalcon, you can have a goshawk, you can have a hybrid captive raised bird. You can have basically anything you want, and you can take them from the nest, though there are some limitations on certain species that they're depending on what state you live on and so forth. After 5 years as a general falconer, then you become a master falconer. So that means you have at least 7 years of experience with birds of prey. And as a master falconer, you can keep any number of birds of prey, and including eagles. There are a few people that keep eagles, though it's a dubious practice that can be hazardous to your health.
If you're a good falconer and you're doing what the sport implies, which is training a hawk to pursue wild quarry, you want to kill something. So you're not going to go out and do a damage like you are with a shotgun. If a fella has a top-rate falcon and can go out and get 40 or 50 ducks for a season, he's done extremely well. Somebody with a shotgun can do that in a couple outings, you know. I've always had birds, had pigeons, still do. Had pigeons as a kid and that, but my folks actually went out to a rancher's place to look at cattle, steer to have raised and for food, and while they were in the barn talking to the rancher, a kestrel falcon had fallen out. Actually, they fledged. Didn't know nothing about nothing then, and they had fledged, and there was 2 young ones running around. The rancher kept one. My folks brought one home for me. And as much as I knew about hawks was female kestrel has a red tail, so I figured it was a baby red tail, which your average red tail is going to be about 2 pounds, and the thing never grew over 5 ounces. So I knew it wasn't a red tail at that point, and started reading, found out there's laws, regulations. I couldn't have the bird, falconry license, and be needed, requirements.
My current falconry birds, I have 2 male Harris hawks, and I just purchased them from a breeder last fall, so they're young still, not even a year old. They're brothers, and I was excited I've never flown a cast of birds, so this was my first experience flying 2 raptors together, and it was a great season, a lot of fun. Falconers, like a lot of hunters are big conservationists. The peregrine falcon, the Peregrine Fund, who brought back the peregrine falcon from the brink of extinction, is founded by falconers. They were instrumental in saving that bird in North America.
Falconers have done the peregrines back in the 50s with the DDT and all the reintroduction, the peregrine programs, the hacking of young birds and all that. And the federal government will take credit for it and the states will take credit for it. But all those birds were donated, given, and manicured and taken care of and raised and released by falconers.
They're so adaptable. I feel like it makes people forget about birds like the ferruginous hawk that aren't adaptable, and those are the ones that really need our help. We look at the peregrine and the bald eagle and oh, endangered species success stories, yay, and it is worth celebrating, but I think it makes us forget the guys that really, really need our help, because they're never going to be able to do what those birds did. The ferruginous hawk is never going to be able to live in a developed area, ever. It's going to disappear before it's going to be able to do that.
Raptors are really effective at cleaning up and getting rid of sick animals out in the environment. And many birds fly in flocks, and they're very susceptible to disease, and you get one sick bird in the flock and the whole flock goes down. The peregrine falcons, like the other falcons and hawks, have an incredibly acute vision for seeing birds that aren't perfect, and that's what they want to go after. They know that they're weak, they know that they're more vulnerable, and so they prune them out, and it's really remarkable how important it is to the health of the rest of the community. There's more demand for using falcons and hawks in vineyards than there is people doing it. And it's even a bigger deal in blueberries up in Oregon and Washington than it is down here in grapes. Because our grape season is rather short. The grapes ripen over maybe a period of about a month. And we only need to protect the grapes when the grapes are sweet and the birds are eating them. When the grapes are green out on the vine, the birds have no interest in them at all. It's only when they become sweet that they get an interest. And so essentially we just have to fly our falcons or hawks over the vineyards several times a day to keep the birds out.
I've had a contract with the Republic landfill. August 2nd will be my 14-year anniversary of working for that particular landfill. And their main issue is seagulls, and that requires a larger falcon. So I've used female peregrines, female sakers, some other hybrids, but mainly you need a large falcon to intimidate a seagull. The state does not govern bird abatement. It's federal. So you have to have your vehicle that you transport the birds in. You have to send them pictures. And your quarters where birds are kept, and they tell you how many birds you can have to be used and so on. Where with the federal bird abatement permit, we touched on that a little bit, you're allowed to use your falconry birds.
They've got propane cannons, and every couple minutes, kaboom, these things go off. They work okay for a few months. Once the birds learn the drill and they know that these things are going off, they don't even hear them anymore. People put tinsel on their vines, and it reflects and moves in the light. And that might scare birds for a few weeks also. more effective method has been to put netting on the vines, but it's extremely expensive. It's much more cost effective to get somebody with a bird to chase the game away. And it's also it has very little impact on the wild birds out there, because the abatement birds are not trained as falconry birds. They're not trained to hunt. Their deal is to keep the skies clear, and their game is just to chase anything that they see away, rather than to actually catch it. They're not they're being fed by their owners, and so they're not really that hungry for the food, and they're just kind of having fun flying around, which is typically what falcons do. Falcons fly for the sheer joy of flying. They're really awesome. They can go up, 4,000 feet. They can come down in, well, I guess it takes about a minute for them to get down from there.
There's always dangers, there's always risks, but I think you try to set it up to be as safe as it can be. If your bird's well trained, you're reading your bird's messages and body language, you are going to make smart decisions about when and where to fly your bird. Your bird will send you signals before it makes a big move.
We always worry about other predator birds, golden eagles. Red-tailed hawks can be issues. Golden eagles can oftentimes are hunting from 5,000 to 6,000 feet up. You can't see them. They close their wings and come down about 200 miles an hour. They'll snatch a red-tail or a peregrine falcon right out of the sky if it doesn't see them coming, and they're something to contend with. When my bird sees a golden eagle, he gets very nervous. He gets down low. He freezes and doesn't move until it's completely out of sight. I'm flying a wild bird. Canocti is a bird that's been out in the wild for several years and knows the drill, knows what to be aware of and what to be afraid of. Most of the falconers, in fact, all of the guys who do abatement, are flying birds that have been captive raised. That's the law. You can't take birds out of the wild and use them for a for-profit scheme, basically, which abatement is. And so they have to fly captive raised birds. Captive raised birds don't have parents that teach them about the dangers of the world, and so they're much more susceptible to getting killed by these things.